Netanyahu's orange grows. Microchips is us. iPhone cameras us. Taco salads us. Dodavabanos us. Olive Garden us. White phosphor us. Sabra Hamas. Hasbara sus.
Hello and welcome to Bad Hasbara.
The world's most moral I'm trying to
I know.
balance out. Your voice is about an octave lower, so I'm trying to go an octave higher.
Yes, the world's most moral podcast. I am your most
the world's most moral podcast is a podcast about mushroom foraging.
Oh, is that right? Do I not understand?
Do you
is
know
that
what
what
morel?
I've never foraged mushrooms. I grew up in Los
Never
Angeles.
had a morel, a good umami tasting mushroom. No?
Yeah, you're throwing in words like umami. I only know them as a place that makes burgers. You've never had an umami burger?
I've never had an umami burger, but umami is
Typical.
that tasty, earthy flavor that the Japanese specialize in. Anyway, I'm in San Francisco right now, so maybe the mushroom maybe the mushrooms are in the air, the spores.
It could be. You might be getting some of that spore thing from Last of Us turn into a clicker. I am your world's most moral host, Matt Lieb.
I'm Daniel Mate. Whatever else you want to say about me, probably your world's other most moral co-host.
Yes, and
Podcast.
we are
Welcome to
so
the show.
excited to have you here. As you can tell, I'm a little sick. My daughter gave me some sort of illness again, and I ended up like losing my voice. And now it's almost back, which for me, I'm like, if it's almost back, then it's time to podcast. That's what I say. You know,
Your daughter giveth viruses and taketh away tech equipment.
Yeah, and taketh away my sweet, sweet time because she had to not be in daycare for the last few days of last week. And I got to say, really, really happy that she's better. Good for her. So excited. So excited for her being all cured. I feel like shit, dog. I feel like dog shit.
Dog shit, dog.
Dog shit, dog. But so excited that you guys are all joining us. I'm going to be speaking a little bit more like this for this podcast because not only does it sound more sexy, but also it doesn't strain my voice as much. Is that all right?
Well,
with
I've
you,
always,
Daniel?
actually, Matt, it's funny. I have always wondered, what would this podcast sound like if it was an NPR show? You know,
Yeah,
if it was a drive time, if we interspersed our jokes and japes at the expense of Israeli propaganda with some light jazz and
I like
some discussion of, I don't know, crossword puzzles or gardening or other things that NPR listeners crave.
I'm gonna do one of those like Michael Barbaro like moans he does.
Neither of us have a name complicated enough for NPR.
Yeah.
I got a goddamn accent on my name.
Yes. Hello, I am Matteo Spaghetti Meatball, and I'm here with Daniel Matete. And we're here on This American Hasbara. Chapter 1, Yahya or Yahya Sinwar.
This episode is brought to you by the Rockefeller Foundation.
Rockefellers, the other Rothschilds. Thank you.
Jay-Z made his whole company Rockefeller. I'm waiting for some rapper to name his like rap conglomerate after the Rothschilds.
Yeah,
The
Rockefeller.
rap. Yeah. The Childs of Wrath.
Yeah, there we go. That's fun.
We're flailing a bit here, Matt. We're flailing a bit.
We're not flailing. We're doing great.
This is not flailing?
No, listen, there's no such thing as flailing with podcasting because at the end of the day, people.
Oh, we're podcasting. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, all they're doing is they're like doing their taxes. They're doing their laundry. They're like, what's the one? They're vacuuming their car.
They're tuning
not
us out or they're tuning something else out.
Yes, they're double screening. They're playing Toon Blast or whatever. They're on their phones. They're looking at porn. The point is that we are secondary to whatever else they're doing.
Imagine
today.
making this podcast the soundtrack, the backdrop to your porn use.
Yeah, the editor's scalpel removes all flails. Thank you, Adam. And this is a shout out to Adam Levin, our wonderful producer. Please tell him he's wonderful. in the chat. Also,
I
today's
love your
episode,
NPR voice. It's so
this is
smooth.
what I gotta do, bro.
It's really disturbing.
It's not fun. But I will be doing Michael Barbaro's moans. Just because he sounds like he's coming sometimes when he's listening to people.
Well, I want him to come.
Yeah, I want you to come. I don't have that anymore. I just have.
You're emotionally damaged, Jewishly.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Today's episode is brought to you by MAP, Medical Aid for Palestinians. Please donate now. map.org.uk. You go there.
Hold on. UK.
Yeah.
We're collaborating with the Brits on this one.
Listen, not all Brits. Hashtag not all Brits. Once again, MAP, Medical Aid for Palestinians. Join that or not subscribe. Please donate to that. And also, if you have any money left over, patreon.com/badhasbara, please. We have some great bonus episodes coming up. We're going to be doing a movie review of the movie Golda on the Patreon, just for Patreons. It's going to be really fun. We're watching one of many Hasbara movies that we will be doing on the Patreon. So please join now, and you can watch all of the great movies in which Israel is hero and everyone else is villain, including the Americans for some reason.
When you tune into that, you can expect to hear me say something along the lines of, I can forgive our patrons for
killing us,
for wanting to watch the movie Golda and listen to us joke about it, but I can never forgive them for making me watch the movie Golda.
Yeah. Yes, I also blame our patrons. It's certainly not my fault for seeing it and being like, we need to talk about this movie. All right.
It's the Golda Meir thing to do. You know, you know that quote from her, right?
Oh yeah. Killing our children.
The most passive. It's like, I've always called her, Hitler's like passive aggressive wet nurse. You know.
Yeah. Just like it's like, what if a Nana was just reading Mein Kampf out loud, but sweetly.
That's right.
In a way that seemed comforting until you dissected the content. Yes. So before we get to introducing our wonderful guest, I want to show a tweet. This tweet, listen, we've played and displayed a lot of tweets on the show that are insane. This is no different. So apparently, it was Netanyahu's 75th birthday recently.
Yesterday, I think.
Was it yesterday?
This, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, shout out to Netanyahu for being 75 years young. And here is a tweet by some Twitter psychopath who made an AI celebration of him enjoying his birthday from LA Afrat. Benjamin Netanyahu celebrates his 25th birthday in about an hour.
75th.
What did I say?
25th.
It seems like he's 25, though.
Yeah.
I'm like, look how beautiful he is.
It's that vampiric glow of...
Yes.
It's that sheen of immortality that comes from drinking other people's blood.
Hey, no
Damn
blood.
right, I just did a blood libel.
No blood
Damn
libel
right, I
here.
did.
No blood libel here. You can't do that, Daniel.
No, I'm just saying
the
he drinks
only
blood.
People who drink blood are that Peter Thiel guy, and let's be honest, Netanyahu. Look at this guy.
Look at him.
He asked, "What do you wish him for his birthday?" So, Daniel, I want to ask you, if you could get something for glorious leader Benjamin Netanyahu, what would it be?
I would want some psychonaut, which is to say, psychedelic expert chemist or cook friend of mine, like a chef, some kind of psychedelic chef, to concoct him just a beautiful dosed falafel ball or something, or whatever his favorite fucking food, or pickle, or a
baklava,
bagel and schmear, whatever he likes to feast on.
Yeah,
and dose
other than human blood,
I would want this person to dose him with just a perfect combination of, I don't know whether it's cannabis or psilocybin or ketamine or ayahuasca, just some perfect combination. I would want him to go on a terrifying, nauseating, vomit-inducing, shivers like right to the very edge of
Yeah.
his tolerance for sort of karmic accountability.
Sure.
Just getting a sense. I would want it to start with the pain and horror of his victims. I'd
Yeah.
want him to take a trip back to his own ancestors, to Europe.
Mhm.
I'd want him to get slapped around by his European ancestors, being like, "What the fuck are you doing, grandson?" I'd want him to go on some kind of journey that would leave him so shaken that he'd be unable to speak for the rest of his life.
Yes.
But all
like
all
a
of his
vision
thoughts,
quest.
a vision quest, yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
I mean that actually from my heart. I would want that for him, and I would want him to never be able to hold power again. I'd want him to be weeping probably for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And then maybe give him the opportunity to come out of it just in time to say something that would go down in history as the world's best. Oh shit, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I like the idea of Netanyahu having a really bad trip, but I mean,
Yeah.
like when you have a bad trip or I have a bad trip, like what are we seeing? You know, a lot of the times it can be like the most horrific things you can imagine, you know, blood, guts, gunfire, you know, children dying. But for him, like I assume for him, he's like, oh, this is fun because he's a psychopath. Like, what's a bad trip for someone who enjoys human suffering? I feel like it's having to like sit and watch Teletubbies and maybe like kind of just rewatch the "We Are the World" video over and over again, or like watch a speech by Edward Said. You know what I mean?
Well, it would have to start with like it's like a pleasant image, or he's at a celebration filled with his favorite people.
Mhm.
Trump is there, Joe
Yes.
Biden is there, his wife is there. But when any of them open their mouths to speak, Edward Said's voice comes out.
Oh shit! Yes.
Or Sinwar's voice comes out.
yeah,
And it's, you know, like Tevia's dream in Fiddler on the Roof, where it's just
Yeah.
this kind of larger than life thing that shakes him awake. So yeah, it would be something where like it would have to start with a favorite place, a happy place.
Yeah.
You know, just images of the lovely turning into the horrific, and Zionism falling apart in front of him and under his feet.
yeah. I would like to imagine that the only thing that would make him have a bad trip is if he saw like Israel, the flag comes down and in its place the Palestinian flag goes up. I think he would lose his mind and he would cry. He would basically he would end up like Percy at the end of Green Mile. He would just shoot some other guy. Thank you, John Coffey. I'm sorry, but I just love the Green Mile. You ever seen that movie?
No, but you've mentioned it on like 2 straight podcasts.
Have I?
So maybe I should see it.
I like it. It's good. They kill them what they love. Yeah, I was thinking for a birthday present, what I would like is for him to have a cake that was made out of poison, and then he dies. But I'm not very
Right, yeah.
creative in this state of sickness. You know, I'm just like, I don't know, something that leads to him dying. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, my backup plan would be a piano falls on his head.
Yeah, right.
But I do like the idea that even as he's dying slowly of the poison or of, being crushed under the weight of a piano, that he does have some kind of vision where he's trying to sing the Israeli national anthem, but he can't.
Yeah.
All that comes out of his own mouth is the cries of a
Yeah.
Palestinian child. Just something to really shock his system, so
Yeah.
that as he heads for the next life, he's got some things to think about.
Yeah. And that next life, if there is a hell, that's where he's going. So speaking of, there's no good transition out of that, but there is someone.
That was a hilarious bit. Gotta say, one of the funniest things we've ever done.
I'm dying out here, bro. I'm fucking sick. Our guest is a Palestinian American actor, playwright, and author. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Najla Said.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi, Najla.
how you doing?
Good. Sort of. But yeah, I'm good.
Is it sort of because you're like, wow, these guys are really flailing?
No, maybe. No,
We're doing our best.
I'm doing great. You guys are hilarious.
Sometimes. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
And we need to ask you first and foremost, what would you get Netanyahu for his 75th?
What would I
Hope
get
you weren't
him?
offended by the idea of recruiting your father's voice for a
No,
nightmare
I think it's great.
psychedelic
I would
sequence.
actually, there's a famous story where he refused to be in the same room with my dad when they were
That's right.
interviewed. So, I would probably get him my dad.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Just
His
a
bad
room full of your dads. Yeah.
Yes. His bad trip would be having to publicly debate your father.
Well, and that's what happened. Like he was so
Yes.
scared, and my brother insists that that's when they invented the split screen interview, because before that, everyone would show up in the studio, and then
right.
my brother's like, everyone was so scared of our dad that now they had to start putting people in different studios, and I'm like, I don't think that's what happened, but it's
Yeah.
a good
They call
story.
it the Said screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Split screen is the Said screen. Yeah, that is a crazy thing. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Netanyahu refused to. It wasn't that he refused to debate him. He wouldn't be in the same room.
Right,
With,
because he was convinced my dad wanted to kill him. A little bit of projection, but that's okay.
yeah, 100% projection. It is completely insane, especially for anyone who knows the work of Edward Said.
Exactly.
The idea that he had become like the foremost academic talking about Palestine and talking about Orientalism in the country, in the world, all as a long con to eventually get in the same room with fucking Bibi Netanyahu, who, by the way, the lesser Netanyahu at this point. I mean, his brother was the one who was the, quote, hero of
Right.
Entebbe.
It's like he's a psychological, like, it's so obvious. He's got issues.
Oh, yeah. He
Beyond, but
he wants to be his brother so bad. And to be honest, I do too, because his brother died. But yeah, just the idea that he was claiming, oh, this guy wants to kill me. It's so fucking ridiculous. As if Netanyahu can step into any room in which there isn't at least one person who's like,
It's
Right.
really what Zionists get freaked out by the funniest people. A friend of mine has been organizing some speaking events for Peter Beinart in Western Canada, and he was originally going to come speak at the local synagogue, but the synagogue absolutely rebelled. And these are like Western Canadian Jews, not conservatives overall, but when it comes to Israel, and someone like Peter Beinart, the most fucking mild-mannered, Jew-loving, like practicing, just like your father had a sharp tongue and a very incisive mind, yes. And so to idiots, that's very scary. But he was not some kind of fire-breathing radical,
no, not at all.
But it's the calmness, it's the erudition, it's the reasonableness that actually sets these people off. That must have been something that your father remarked on in his time, that just something just about him being a genuine Palestinian intellectual.
Yeah, like my whole childhood, because my brother and I went to private school, so in Manhattan. So, I went to school with my brother's classmate was Lachlan Murdoch, and every time Rupert Murdoch and they were friends. I mean, like when they were little, they had play dates, but whenever Rupert would see my dad, he would just like turn his head and do some like very dramatic, like, I don't like you thing. And my dad was always like, who are these people? Like, he's such a horrible human. I don't care. So there was a lot of that. And there was a lot of like people, my friends being like, oh, your dad is I respect him because he dresses nicely and basically what they were saying, he dresses nicely and he sounds like doesn't sound like an Arab.
right.
But he's so controversial. And I'd be like, you're calling my parent controversial. Like, it's a bit awkward. But yeah, there was a lot of that.
It is, I think for me, it is one of the craziest things was reading Edward Said before seeing him speak.
Oh, really?
Because all I knew about him was what the Hasbara was.
Right.
That he was, a scary Palestinian. Growing up, if you were a Palestinian, you were, by blood and by birth, were someone who was an anti-Semite, right? So reading his work, I was just like, I fell in love with it because he's such a brilliant writer. But I still, in my head, imagined someone completely different. Not yelling the words, but in a way, writing it less soft-spoken than he actually is.
Yes, that's a good.
And so I want to play a little bit of Edward Said speaking for people who have never seen him speak. Because for me, this is what kind of like really blew my mind.
A child of a people that's been sort of kicked out of its own land, forbidden to return. I mean, that is to say, most of the authors of these books, for example, are sometimes students who are employed by these agencies to spy on me and to find out what I say and this sort of thing. And if they're Jewish, just by fact of being Jewish, born in New York of a Jewish parent, they're entitled to go to Israel, or Palestine as I call it, become Israeli citizens at any time that they wish. I was born there, my father was born there, my grandfather, great-grand, etc. And I can't return. I don't have the same right. I mean, the law of return somehow covers them. And my people, my family, were kicked out of there. And they're writing books about me, accusing me of terrorism. I mean, the enormity of the whole thing just baffles me at the same time that it strikes me very strongly.
So for me, that clip kind of describes my exact awakening around this issue. The idea that just by Jewish parentage, I have somehow more right to be an Israeli citizen than someone who was literally born there.
Yeah.
But, because they're Palestinian.
And in your case, only half Jewish parentage. I mean,
I know.
me
Yes.
coming and kicking Najla's ancestors off their land.
Well, yeah,
okay,
that's
at least,
okay.
at
That's
least
fine.
both my parents are nominally Jewish,
Right.
not really practicing Jews. But come on. But you?
Yeah, no, but honestly, a little bit, though, that is kind of my thinking. I'm not saying, obviously, that it is okay for Daniel to do it and not for me. But what I'm saying is the utter ridiculousness of me, someone who is half Jewish, was raised completely secular, no religion. My ties to, the Jewish community have been largely Zionist ties rather than religious ties.
Yeah.
They've been communal ties. Someone who literally my first time in Israel was through birthright. Like the idea that I have somehow more of a right to that land than you or your father, that for me was the beginning of my awakening. And also, just to say real quick, I can't fully describe without sounding like a monster the racist caricature that was in my head before hearing your father speak, before seeing him. It was, not to overstate it, but it was definitely not that guy,
No.
So it is, a lot of awakening happened.
If you happen to speak to him anytime soon, just pass along our apologies for that. I feel kind of awkward.
Yeah, my bad.
Stereotypes and we're sorry. Just let him know.
I will do so.
Thank you.
It's really funny because my friends, like what you were saying, is like growing up, everyone would be like, I'm going to Israel. We're going to Israel. I'm having a bar mitzvah in Israel. And I would be like, does it ever occur to you that that's kind of like not nice to me? It hurts my feelings. Never occurred to anyone.
Yeah. So
you write in Looking for Palestine about how people really didn't know what to make of you either.
No.
Because
but that was on me too. Yeah.
That was how so?
Well, it's partly about the fact that, first of all, my family's Christian, and unlike a lot of Arab Christians, we're not Greek Orthodox, we're Anglican. So I was a baptized Episcopalian. And then my dad's mom's family is actually Baptist because my great-grandfather came to America to like follow some, the American dream, but that didn't work out. So he became a Baptist minister in Waco, Texas, and then moved back to Nazareth, where, as we all know, Jesus comes from. So
Yeah.
my family is very different in that way. And so first it was, oh, you're Christian. So that's different. And then it was all class-based because I was at private school. And
Yeah.
and it's interesting because in Arab culture, sort of being upper class is more being an intellectual. It's not about money. So my parents had gone to good schools and all this stuff, but I'm from a family of intellectuals, not rich people. So I didn't fit in because everyone at my school was rich. They all lived on the Upper East Side and I lived on the West Side, which to them
That's a
made me
huge
Jewish.
divide.
Yeah, and
That's
that
a
made
huge
me
divide.
like Jewish.
Yeah.
Because like no one lived on the West Side. So it was kind of weird. And then I just was like confused. So, I would just be like, I don't know where I'm from. I don't understand. And I kind of, because I thought Jewish people would hate me if I told them, because there was a war. My mom's Lebanese and there was a war and I just didn't understand. So I think the default at the time was to try to assimilate, and I looked more white. So I tried to be more white. I was never like considered a minority. So it was weird.
And I have to assume if you grew up in a home populated by intellectuals,
Yeah, very
friends
different.
of your father, you were hanging out with a lot of prominent Jews.
Oh, yes, all the time. Noam Chomsky, Philip Roth, even all these bizarre, brilliant intellectuals. Because also the Upper West Side I grew up on was more like socialist, Bundist, like intellectually type people. And now it's like very different. It's very
Yes.
capitalisty, Zionisty.
Bit more Israeli, actually.
Yes, that too.
It's not enough that they colonize your father's homeland.
Now they're
Then they come
colonizing
into-
my
then they-
homeland.
I know, and I'm not leaving.
Then they come and follow him to the place where he had to settle. Not when I say settle, I mean in the other
Yeah.
sense of the
Settle as a
word.
refugee.
Yeah, settle like as a
Exactly.
consolation prize.
Yes.
Yeah, they just can't get enough.
I know. It's pretty funny. And they all like really just think deep down inside somewhere I am Jewish because they
Well,
can't fathom that I'm a Palestinian. I had tutored a kid once 25 years ago and his mom kept saying I was Sephardic. And I was like, no, I'm not Sephardic. She just couldn't understand how I was like tutoring her son and I was Palestinian or something.
Yeah, it's funny you say that timeline because that was I feel like the word Mizrahi had not entered the
No.
modern American Jewish lexicon at that point. At that point, it was you were either Ashkenazi, which just meant white, which of course isn't actually the case. That's not what it literally means.
Right.
Or you were Sephardic, which was just like one of them brown Jews.
A brown Jew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those Jews that got caught up on the wrong side of the tracks.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's just always been fascinating to me. I've always wanted to do a deep dive into when exactly Mizrahi entered the lexicon for.
Yeah, that's a
at
really
least-
good question. I like
Yeah.
totally missed that too. But then I
Yeah.
was being corrected all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's interesting. It just at some point they wanted to make a distinction, and now you don't hear about the Sephardic Jews outside of like, oh, they're a very specific, got exiled from Spain, and it's like,
Well,
Right.
literally, the word Sephardic means from Sepharad is
Right.
Hebrew for Spain. Mizrahi is a specifically Israeli term.
right. It just was
Ah.
not.
It only makes sense in the Zionist context. And then
Yes.
when we had Hadar Cohen on, she talked about this. We've had other guests talk about this. That it's a controversial term. Some Arab Jews are reclaiming it. Some people claim it proudly. Some people claim it as within the Zionist fabric, and some people claim it as a rebuff of it. It's very complicated. But speaking of the complicated and overlooked relationship between Palestinians and Jews in that land, I just wanted to mention before we move on to other things, Najla. A couple of weeks ago, Hadar and I came and saw you in a play that you were in that just closed.
Yes. Unfortunately, it
Called-
was only a very short run.
It was a very short run. It was just how was the rest of the run? It was called The Mulberry Tree.
It was wonderful. I mean, we got better and better. I personally did. But
Yeah, we saw the very first night. It was beautiful. It was like, and the director gave her lovely speech about how you're the first audience to see this and you're the final ingredient. I love that.
I know, and I think we were nervous because I think people had made us feel like if we did this play at this time, it would be controversial or people would be uncomfortable. And
so why don't you tell us a bit about why that fear was there? What was the show about? And
sure.
and
So
yeah,
the play is set in history. So it starts in 1970, but then goes back in time where there's this. So in 1970, there's a young man who shows up at this village in the Galilee. That's now a Jewish village. And there's a woman there who's actually based on a real human being because it's a real village. And she's the daughter
this is in 48 Israel.
In 48 in the Galilee, in the north.
Yeah.
She like gives tours now of this village where there's this ancient synagogue. So the play, which was written by a man who grew up in this village, is about, it's not really about him, it's fictional, but the village was, before 48, a village where there were many of these villages. There were Jews, Jews, Muslims, and Christians all living together, and they were all Palestinian. So there's a rabbi in the village, and the young boy who's, purportedly Muslim, but they don't really believe anything, which is another thing that I like about the play, is it's not specifically built around this Muslim family. It's really just they're secular, and there's
a hilarious moment early in the play where because the rabbi of the village becomes a mentor and a friend to this young boy, and actually the Palestinian actor played him.
Yes.
Beautiful job. But anyway, the boy and the boy's grandfather, because the boy's father has died, the boy's grandfather, who's also friends with the rabbi, comes along, and the boy says, grandfather, can we go to synagogue too for Yom Kippur or whatever he says, no, we don't go to synagogue. We're Muslim. We go to the mosque. And the kid goes, when do we ever go to the mosque?
Yeah.
We don't believe in anything.
Yeah. And the grandmother's a communist, and it's like really bizarre. But that's also more like the families I know that are Palestinian. There's a lot of and my parents grew up in that Palestine where their religion wasn't a thing. It was, most people were secular. So in the play, the young boy wants to be the rabbi's Shabbat helper. So he comes over to light the candles, and then the rabbi starts teaching about the Zohar. But then history catches up with them, and then the King David Hotel is bombed, and all these things start happening. And the rabbi ultimately has to sort of choose, which is his people. Is it this family that he's lived with and, his whole life? Or is he going to go help the new immigrants from the camps? So it's complicated and it's deeply moving, and you sort of have to decide at the end if he saved their lives or betrayed them or both. So what it does show is that there were Jewish people always in Palestine, and that was never a thing.
What it really showed for me, the nauseating, creeping feeling of the encroachment of this Zionist project as it rolls towards its inevitable, as we now know, historically inevitable conclusion, but just the tension that it brings. And the fact that, one of the biggest points of discomfort and cringe for me is there's a kibbutz they keep talking about over across the valley. And, again, I grew up going to summer camp that was modeled on kibbutz, and where kibbutz was supposed to be this utopian ideal. And it turns out even within the Jewish nationalist project, kibbutzim have been very racist against Arab Jews, against brown Jews, very, very, very much a place for European Jews.
Yeah.
But within the context of this show, there's just, it's like, what are they doing over there across the valley in that kibbutz? They're building things. They're doing military training exercises, Grandpa. I saw them. They have guns.
Yeah.
They're practicing with machine guns. They're planning something. What are they planning? This ominous sense that inside the walls of what I ended up as a North American kid hearing about as a utopian project.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was the complete huge crime being planned and then perpetrated, which is the destruction of the life that the communal, collective, multi-faith, indigenous life based on belonging to a place that this play beautifully depicts. It was so lovely, and you were wonderful in it. And it was,
Thank
I'm really
you.
glad I
Well,
got to see it.
hopefully we're going to do it again. So we were scared the first night. We didn't know. And then we got standing ovations every night, which was wonderful.
Wow.
And one of the last shows, I was walking to the theater, an hour before the show. And there was this old lady from the Upper West Side who was lost. And she had neuropathy in her foot, and she couldn't figure out where the theater was. And am I in this play about the and she's against the occupation, but she's open to seeing this play. And then I gave her a hug, and we went, and she stood up at the end, and so it was more surprising than I thought. So that it actually affected people that I didn't think it would. So it was actually really interesting.
I love the idea. It's like, I'm against the occupation, and therefore I can watch this play.
Exactly. I was like, good for you, lady.
Yeah, hell yeah. You checked all the boxes on the should I see this play thing.
Right. And then
Are
she
you
was
against-
kind of like, the kids are too far left. And I was like, all right, let's use
All
the
right,
theater.
well,
Let's move on.
We already hugged. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the strangest thing. Ever since I wept during the scene where all the Arabs were being kicked out of the villages, the neuropathy in my foot, it's a lot better.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I think it was the Zionism all along.
You brought up something very interesting about Palestinian identity, like including being a secular person, that I think a lot of people don't. I mean, Hasbara has tried to spin Palestinian identity as being specifically and intractably Islamist.
Yes.
The idea that, it goes hand in hand with not just like being a Muslim, but being a terrorist, a
Yes.
Muslim terrorist, right? And I think, you see the way that can have this blowback effect, at least on, people such as yourself or such as your father, in which all of a sudden the idea of a Palestinian Christian is just like, what? Can
The
you
most
tell us
ironic
more?
thing in the world, because we're from Nazareth, but that's all.
But yeah, can you tell us more about just kind of growing up specifically as a Palestinian Christian and what that has been like for, have you had any interactions with people who consider themselves like Christian Zionists who have tried to use Christ against you?
Yeah. Well, I haven't. Well, this is the first time we went, and the only time I went to Palestine. I was 18, and it was my father's first time back because he had just been diagnosed with leukemia. And so he was writing an article for the London Observer about his trip home after leaving 45 years earlier or whatever. And the day that we went to his house, which is in a neighborhood called Telbiya, or Telpiot, I think is how you say it in Hebrew.
Yeah.
It's a very sort of upper class Jerusalem neighborhood, very close to where Netanyahu lives. So that's the first thing, is like, we're from West Jerusalem. So we're from a part of Palestine that is gone. Like, we're never going to get it back. So the first thing was like being from West Jerusalem and not East Jerusalem, like most Arabs. And that was the weird thing. But then we went to the house, and my dad was like looking at the room he was born in and remembering things. And then he was terrified. He didn't want to go inside. But then we walked, and my brother and I were like, oh, wait till we'll get there. Like, we were convinced that the family that lived in our house was like, Rosenberg, like someone's name that we knew. And that we were going to be like, oh, our friends from like school live in this house. Their family name is on this house. But we get there, and
They're just holding on to it for us.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we get there, and like the house has a plaque on it that says the International Christian Embassy, which is a right-wing Zionist Christian organization run by a South African Boer.
Perfect.
So on top of
Perfect.
everything.
Chef's kiss.
And we
Chef's
all
kiss.
just stood there with our mouths like just dropped, because like, we're Christian Palestinians, and you took our house and you're using it to like be Zionist Christian. I don't understand. So it was
Zionist Christians founded by a Boer is so funny.
It's
like,
horrifying. It's like
they
the perfect.
can't stop themselves from being just like triple down on apartheid here.
Exactly.
That's wild.
So I haven't actually had much interaction with Christian Zionists, except for the fact that they took our house. There's also a sign on our house that says that Martin Buber lived there, which is also weirdly ironic. because he rented a room from my family. So it's all very,
Can you
but nothing
explain
about
who-
my dad.
Can you explain anything about who Martin Buber is?
Oh, he was a philosopher. He was actually like, he believed very similarly as my dad in a one state sort of equal rights kind of thing.
He was a cultural Zionist.
Yes.
Which back then, meant that you, and it was a plausible position. Einstein took this position too.
Exactly.
That Jewish national collective rights in a place don't have to mean territorial domination, military supremacy, demographic majority by any means necessary, much less ethnic cleansing. And Martin Buber is the one who wrote I and Thou.
Yeah.
A real humanist, Jewish philosopher who had a love for that land and a respect for the indigeneity of the people there, and was trying to imagine a way of the Jews to harness that homelandness of the place without fucking, turning the place into hell on earth the way they have.
It just makes you wonder, did he settle that house immediately after your father was ethnically cleansed?
That's the thing. He rented a room from it was like a 2-family house, So my dad's cousins and aunt and uncle lived upstairs. And when my dad's family left, they stayed a bit longer, and I think they were the ones who rented the room to him. So it was probably right after. Yeah, I'm not sure though.
Martin Buber was writing in the 1920s and 30s, right? Isn't that his era?
Oh yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he was still. I mean, I don't know when it actually was. So I can't.
Still, what a lineage that house is. Had.
It's insane. Yeah, and they've turned it into an ugly condo. They built some stories on top.
Now it's run by Christian Zionists.
Yeah.
Pro-apartheid.
It's like everything in my life has to be very complicated and ironic and confusing all the time.
Yeah, crazy. Completely crazy. We had a lot of news happen in the last 7 days or so, and we're going to get into some of that with you, Najla. But first, we have to take a little bit of a commercial break. So everybody, stick around, because we will be right back. And we're back. Welcome back to Bad Hasbara, the world's most moral podcast. We are here. Sorry, I have to talk like Netanyahu in order to talk normal. So that's just how it's going to be. We
People
are
of the
here.
world, happy birthday to me.
Happy
birthday
birthday.
to me.
Does that
Happy
mean it's
birthday.
the same birthday as Kamala Harris?
They're 1 day apart.
Oh, interesting.
Twinsies.
There's nothing implied there. It's just interesting.
Nothing. No.
But it does mean I think they're the same astrological sign
Sign.
as me, both of them.
Oh.
That makes them Libras, right?
I wish I knew literally anything about like
Sorry.
no, it's just my wife loves what is it called? Astrology. Yeah, she's always, like we'll say something like oh, Sagittarius, I knew it. And I'm just like, what the fuck? How did you know it? Is it because you knew the birthday? And it's like, no, it's a personality type. And I'm like, I don't believe in any of this hocus pocus. Anyways, we're here with Najla Said, our most moral guest, and we're going to be talking as best as we can about the
Asbestos.
as best as we can. It sounds like I inhaled a bunch of asbestos. And we're going to be talking about a fantastic subject. And by fantastic, I mean horrible. We're going to be talking about the death and subsequent reaction to the death of Yahya Sinwar of Hamas, who was murdered in a firefight last week. And this has been...
Or as some people would say more neutrally, killed.
Yes, killed. Died. Somehow died.
Yeah, murdered, killed,
somehow
eliminated, neutralized, martyred,
assassinated. Somehow
Neutralized
died.
is my favorite. It's so
shuffled off
yes.
this mortal coil.
Yes. And Sinwar...
But certainly turned into, literally martyred, as in turned into a martyr for his people who will mourn him. And the way they did it will ensure, in fact, that his legendary status, he instantly became missed by Not only the way Israel killed him, but the way Israel rolled out the news of
Yes.
them having killed him.
And not
Which
to
was-
mention, I have a lot of like aunties in Lebanon, my mom's age and a little bit younger. They all have a huge crush on him and have for years. So now he's
Yeah.
even more of a
These are
god.
Palestinian Christians?
Lebanese, Palestinian.
Lebanese.
Yeah, my family.
Yeah, but not Islamists by any means.
No, they just think he's hot.
So we need to talk about this dynamic.
Yes.
We do because this is the thing.
No, it's true.
Let's get into it, Matt. Yeah.
Well, I mean, first we
was good
need
looking. He
to
was a
get
strong
into the video that was released by Israel in an attempt to, I think, Zionists wanted people to see how badass their military was, which is a constant calibration mistake that they make, in which they're just like, oh, people love it when we do, murder with advanced technology. Here's the video that
It'd be like cops using their body cams to show how badass they are. It never works that way.
yes,
Like you look like the coward.
yes,
You
yes.
look like the fucking bully.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever's at the receiving end of your... Okay, let's look at this. So
Well,
this is
yeah.
a drone, yeah?
Yeah, it's a surveillance drone that was sent into where Sinwar was currently. Like at this point, this is in southern Gaza, and he
Just
is
in the bombed out second floor of some kind of residential...
Yes, he's in a room right now, sitting on a couch, and we see a drone, zigzag its way in there, and we see him sitting on a sofa, and he is in his full military fatigues, and he ends up waving a stick that he has found at the drone, which I think for the people who were putting this video out, I think they wanted to show him as being like, see this butcher with his slicing implement, whether it's a stick or whatever, this barbarian.
Right, because it's just a stick, of course. We don't have anything but sticks.
Yeah. And I think, in an attempt to make him look weak or pathetic, everyone saw something completely different from this video. And what they saw was, one, he was not hiding in Qatar, as they were saying. He was not in Iran. He was not in tunnels under Gaza.
With $13 million in piles.
Yes,
He wasn't
hearing about
hiding
that,
behind some... He wasn't hiding behind some beautiful young Israeli hostage victim.
Right. Yeah. Or hiding behind, a bunch of Palestinian children as human shields. He was on the front lines fighting with his men. He was there with an injury. A tank had shot and blown off part of his hand, I believe. Yeah.
If only there were like really famous, epic Hollywood characters who get their hands
Cut off.
cut off and continue to fight that are like
don't
fucking
know.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, straight up Luke Skywalker. And even while gravely injured, he managed to,
Yeah, Sinwalker.
Oh, that's really good. He managed to still, like, with whatever implement he had around him, he saw that surveillance drone and it was like, fuck you. And
you get the sense of him throwing it. There is a kind of like, fuck you, you fucking cowards. Get this droid out of my face. Get this fucking mechanical dragonfly.
Yes.
It also gives, you know what it also gives? Mike Ehrmantraut's last moments.
Yeah.
Down by the river with Walter White in Breaking Bad season 5, where he just says to him, Walter is like buzzing around him trying to explain all this, and Mike's just like, Walter, shut the fuck up and let me die in peace.
Yes, completely. And it's I think one of the the ways in which Zionism has warped the minds of so many Israelis is they want to they want the world to see him and all Palestinians the way that they see them, which is as this like monolithic, evil, existential threat.
With its balls cut off constantly.
Yes.
This emasculated threat, this humiliated, cucked, feminized, pulverized, neutralized threat, and still pathetically trying to assert its humanity. Now, that's the mindset of a colonialist psychopath.
Yeah.
Yes.
What everyone
Like the
else
New York
sees
Post
is
cover
something-
was like rat in a hole. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
not at all how any of us see that video or see him. It's so fascinating. I'm like, what planet am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nor
And-
did it happen in that way.
Yeah.
It's like he was literally not a rat in a hole.
Exactly.
You know, this whole narrative, they realized when they released the video that they had fucked up because they had shown him not being the person that they said he was going to be.
And here's Shael Ben Ephraim,
Ugh.
my favorite fucking liberal Zionist bugaboo, trying to meekly suggest this, which is his role, to meekly suggest that maybe Hasbara gets things wrong, and then he gets smacked down, and he's like, "Well, I'm just saying." So here's him. The chatter on Arab social media makes it very clear that releasing the drone footage and pictures of Sinwar has backfired. It has added to the myth that which makes him a folk hero and strengthens Hamas. Even people who disliked him are paying tribute. And then someone says, "I call BS. There's nothing heroic about the videos, pictures at all. That little bitch threw a stick and was blown away. Those who celebrate that as heroism were blind to his evil in the first place and deserve their fate." And Shael says, "Just telling you what I am seeing."
Yeah,
Oh, what a
I'm just
comeback.
saying. Yeah, I'm just saying. Don't be mad at me. You're supposed to be on my side. It is, I think, endlessly fascinating, the mindset of an Israeli who sees that and goes like, he's a little bitch. He threw a stick and we had all of this advanced weaponry and we destroyed him. And
Or an
it's like,
Israel support, or an Israel supporter, a Douglas Murray,
oh yeah, no,
a
100%.
Brianna Wu, whoever the fuck, doesn't matter.
Well, I
if
think
you're
what's
Israeli or not.
interesting about it, as it relates to Israeli society, is just any semblance or any pretense of the idea that if a Holocaust was happening, it's. I guess what I'm saying is that you can tell that they find the Holocaust mostly to be a story of Jewish humiliation.
That's
They
right.
Yeah.
find what happened to Jews to be a story of weak, defenseless people who were throwing sticks against a mightier power. And rather than seeing that and going like, damn, that mighty power is fucking evil and they should be, their ideology should be rid from the earth.
And wow, the human spirit is mighty and
Yes.
noble and inspiring. When
Yes.
people against all
Yes.
odds will assert their humanity and their dignity to the very last,
Yes.
as say they did in the Warsaw Ghetto. No, the crime of the Warsaw Ghetto is that we let ourselves get cucked in the first place. That
Yes.
we didn't have a Reich of our own.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
100%.
interesting. My mom said that at the beginning of this whole thing about a year ago. They
Yeah.
don't like us because we fight back or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's fighting back in a way that for them they're like, but don't you see it's hopeless? Don't
Yeah,
you see
exactly.
that you're a sucker if you fight back? Don't you see that you have no chance of winning? You're throwing away your life, and it's this
You're
like
fighting for the losing team.
yes, you're
Right.
fighting
Whereas
for
we see or I see some guy throwing a stick, like to
Yes.
his last breath, he's still like, fuck off, get away from me.
yes,
I'm
exactly,
going to
One
resist
good
until
arm.
the end of,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and
I'm
it's
a human being.
yeah, I'm a human being. I'm brave, and fuck you, and I feel like losing that
mean, also,
understanding is crazy to me. It's completely
And by that,
anathema.
and of course, if you go back to October 7th, they had a moment where they loved showing videos of like Israeli women struggling against their captors.
Yes, yes,
Well, that was hopeless too. Should
Yeah.
we not admire that? I admired the bravery of those women
Absolutely.
in that moment, even as I did the unthinkable and contextualized the actions of October 7th, even as I questioned the allegations of mass systemic rape. There were very clearly multiple cases of young women in the clutches of armed masked men being dragged to their certain doom or very, very, very unpleasant ordeal into Gaza. Fucking terrifying. And to see a woman struggling against her captors, it doesn't mean I'm rooting for her side or whatever, but the human spirit to be like, that's actually relatable and human. And there was a moment where the Zionists allowed themselves, when it comes to their women, look how badass our women are. They fight back. They spit in the face of whatever. But that's, when it comes to a Hamas leader, a fighter, a Palestinian child, Ahmed Tamimi, any Palestinian who asserts their right to defy even and especially when they have no hope of prevailing over the much superior force. Yeah. They just find it disgusting.
Yeah, it's funny. And we became like, when I was 13 or 14, when the first Intifada started, we had all this sympathy because we were throwing rocks at tanks. And like, that's really the legacy of all of this is we cannot and will not stop resisting because it's not okay. And and they don't understand why. And it's like all those people who are just like, peace, peace. And I'm like, you can't just say peace, Yeah. You got to give us something. And I think there's a huge sense, like, same with losing Nasrallah a few weeks ago. I'm half Lebanese, and I was stuck there in 2006 in the war for the second time in my life. And I may not be Shia, and I may not be a member of Hezbollah, but he was a leader who always stuck by his word. He was an eloquent speaker. Everyone would gather around to hear him talk because he used Arabic language so incredibly. And he was cautious, and he was considered, whether you liked his politics or not, he was considered someone to respect. And it's astonishing how, it's not surprising, but it's also like so mind-blowing to see the complete opposite coverage of these people. Because if you're Lebanese and he's preventing your country from being blown up, as much as it's annoying that he's kind of in the middle of a war that you don't want to participate in, you still have respect for someone who's protecting your land, because the Lebanese army really doesn't have that ability. So it's very complicated.
Especially a leader as effective as Nasrallah was.
Exactly.
In getting the Israelis off of their land.
Yeah, he was pretty amazing.
Yes.
And he had a sharp political analysis.
Yep.
Yes.
And Finkelstein tells it that actually Chomsky influenced Nasrallah, that after he met with Chomsky, he never again spoke about the Jews, this and that. He spoke about the United States and military industrial complex. And he's like, Israel's not even the point.
Yeah. And
Israel's just being used by the bigger powers. Now that's dangerous. That's it's that line from The Wire. What's the most dangerous thing in the Middle East? An Arab with a library card.
That's right.
Exactly.
So,
thank you. And a lot of us have them.
Yeah.
We're one of the most we export so much.
You invented libraries for fuck's sake.
We export so much intelligence. It's astonishing. Like everyone has a PhD, so we are very overly educated.
And it reminds me,
Gazans disproportionately most of all in the region.
Yeah, it reminds me of another quote from your father, because you think about like the political sharpness of someone like Nasrallah or Sinwar, in terms of like being someone who is playing a game that is for the benefit of how they are presented on the world stage, no matter how the odds are stacked against them. Your father said something about like expecting Palestinians to just automatically put their own oppression into the context of, well, you know, the Jews have
Yeah.
had a tough history.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous expectation. It's
Expect
not
the Palestinians to be Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors talking about the dentist Oren Scrivelli. He's not a bad man, Seymour. He gets a little rough. He had a tough childhood. Why am I making her sound like Elmo? Anyway,
Dentists are all
great.
sadists. That's just a fact, and I have proof.
Yes.
Anyway, another story. For
That's true. I believe dentists are bad. I'm an anti-dentist.
Steve Martin's best role by far.
Yes, it just I think it speaks to something beyond the kind of like the brutal, dumb brute characterization of these leaders that's done in Western media of like, oh, these are just, Jew-hating monsters, new Hitlers. And you just go like, no, you just, it's like, you're not appreciating the work that went into someone like Sinwar learning Hebrew while he was in prison for 22 years.
Exactly. It's like the stories of, the movies of people we watch, like,
yes,
the hurricane guy and how he went to jail and was wrongly convicted, but then became a lawyer. And like all these people, we like cheer for this. But when it's us, it's like we're sinister, evil, like, I don't know. It's exhausting to try to explain to people that Hamas and Hezbollah have nothing to do with ISIS. It's like, there's just, if they were going to be ISIS, they would have to be able to leave. So it's like, it's just exhausting.
Yeah, no, that when someone does a ISIS Hamas or ISIS Hezbollah comparison, I'm just like, okay, so we're at a stage of you just don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
You're just going to say whatever.
But you're going to tell me, especially when people talk to me like, listen, the Palestinians don't understand that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, would you say that about black people to a black person? No.
Right.
It's astonishing.
And it would be one thing if Israel had any leaders in this day and age that can possibly compare with these men for for seriousness. I mean, Abba Eban was a fucking monster of and so was Golda Meir, but at least they had a certain gravitas to them, right? You got fucking this, Itamar Ben Stay Puft Kosher Marshmallow Man, these fucking lunatics, these clowns in power in Israel these days.
Yes. Yeah. They're not
intellectual lights.
No, they're the people that, like the Kahana people, they're the ones who blew up my dad's office when I was a kid. And then we had bodyguards and a panic button in our house. And somehow I'm a terrorist. Yeah.
Your dad was attacked by the Kahanists?
Yep.
Wow.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
And so we had a panic button in our house and everyone would come over and be like, what's that? And they'd be like, never mind. Don't press it. The FBI will come. It's very strange.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like now every, villain is just another version of the Penguin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're all Penguin coded. Like there's where's our strong Joker supervillain? He's not there anymore. It's all Penguins,
It's so true.
Just like if you're going to be a supervillain, I don't know, looks max a little bit, You guys know about
they
looks
just
max
press buttons and stuff, right? They don't even fly those planes.
Exactly.
They just,
Exactly.
Gentlemen, let's expand our minds.
Yes. But to continue what you were saying about, like, in terms of the way that these heroes in movies are glorified for these acts of, like, bravery, like, this is from an Israeli outlet writing about Sinwar the moments before his death. Then a tank and other troops arrived at the scene. At this point, Sinwar went up to the second floor of the building where he was hiding, and a tank fired a shell at him. Sinwar was apparently wounded by tank fire and lost his hand. After soldiers entered the building, he threw 2 grenades at them. And then Sinwar saw the drone and threw a piece of wood at it. As the account I Really Hate You account, who is an undisclosed Israeli person who puts out a lot of great stuff on Twitter. That's some Rambo shit. Yeah, that is some Rambo. One-handed.
Great movie right there.
Yes. And we're supposed to be like, oh, he died in a hidey hole.
Exactly. And the notion that anyone would admire it is also just anathema. So even as someone like Shael, Here's another shale fail. Who can look at the Arab media and be like, guys, I think this might be backfiring. He can't understand why. And he certainly can't fathom the notion of a fellow Jew seeing anything to admire in Sinwar's Last Stand. So here's him reacting to someone we'd like to be a friend of the show, Alon Mizrahi.
That's right.
Is he a friend of the show? Is he going to?
He's a friend of the show. We've needed to book him. He almost did the show, and we need to rebook him.
We need to rebook him anyway. So certainly someone we admire here.
Yeah.
So Shail's reposting a screenshot of Alon's kind of a eulogy, really, to Sinwar, in which he says he died an honorable death, a warrior's death among his men, one with his people, in defense of his land against a genocidal intruder, occupier, and colonizer. In case the name doesn't give it away, Alon Mizrahi is an Arab-Israeli Jew, we could say, or an Israeli Arab Jew, Israeli Mizrahi, Jewish guy. And he talks about how his death was Hemingwayan. He waxes very poetic here. Yeah. And Shail says, I get called a lot of names by fellow Zionists on here, capo, traitor, etc. Save them for people like this who really deserve them. The fact that any Jew would make Sinwar into a hero after killing, raping, kidnapping, and torturing our people boggles the mind. And this brings to mind that tweet we read of his a few weeks ago, where he's like, people throwing around the term anti-Semite at me, you're almost making the term, or self-hating Jew, you're almost making the term meaningless.
Yeah.
As if that hasn't already happened.
Yeah, right. You're only supposed to do that to the people that I deem are self-hating capos. Come on.
Meanwhile, here's what Shail finds really horrifying. Sinwar had drawings made by his 10-year-old son on his person when he was killed. They showed dead IDF soldiers. What can you say about this mentality? And then John Aziz, who I take it to be some kind of pro-Israel Arab guy. Maybe he's Palestinian.
Love those.
I don't know.
Those are the best.
Yeah. We have to teach peace and compassion faster than the people who want war teach war and hate. And Shail says, yes.
Yes.
I like that. Faster. Like they're running around trying to teach peace and compassion.
But very slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is wild to me the amount of, because like Shail's not wrong about one thing, which is that the reaction has been vastly different than expected. And so much so that you saw the immediate attempts to spin this, to try to recover, what they had lost in their initial failed Hasbara attempt. So we have articles that came out. Here's one from the Latin Times, which I didn't know there was a Latin Times. Hamas leader was carrying candy stolen from humanitarian aid package at the time of assassination. The nerve. He was eating candy.
God forbid he needed a little sugar rush before he dropped dead. I mean, what the hell?
It's total cap. There's no humanitarian aid packages in October.
Yeah. Please.
That's true.
And candy. Yeah, like everyone knows that
it's not.
They don't allow sugar.
Candy before you're murdered.
It's like stealing candy from the severed hand of a dead baby
that we killed. Those Adam says those grenades were painted to look like candy that Americans dropped, probably. And then
signed by Governor Josh Shapiro in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
That's right. And then they were saying, hey, he was trying to escape. That was a big thing that they were saying. He's not a hero. He was trying to leave. And then also
slave.
Simultaneously, they were like, Sinwar's fatal mistake. Hamas leader refused Arab offer to escape Gaza. So kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I know they kept saying he was in Qatar and all this stuff. And it's like,
I know.
It's like, no, he's not.
This fucking coward took the first one-way ticket out of there. This fucking idiot turned down the first one-way ticket out of there.
Right.
Which is it?
Yeah. And so
it's humiliation no matter what.
Yes.
It's like his fate is sealed in the Israeli story. No matter what he did, he died like a dog. He died like a rat. Anyway, because to live is to live as a Palestinian.
Yes.
Can only end in dying in some justified way.
Yep.
That's right. And, then they tried the Hasbara attempt with the Birkin bag, where they were like,
That's what I just don't understand this argument
wife.
anyway. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Well, they were
and
showing,
also, how do you know it's a Birkin bag? It could be fake.
Yeah, it was. It also was not a Birkin bag. People who are like big Birkin
I know
heads
Arabs.
were
It's fake.
Yes, they were like, this is fake. But my, I think, absolute favorite attempt to smear Sinwar was done by an interview with a former Israeli interrogator named Michael Kubi. And I need to play this for you.
I can say about Yahya Sinwar that he was the cruel man that I ever met, in my life.
So this is the former head of interrogation department, Israeli security agency.
He was so mean to me. I had him in my torture room for 2 weeks. He would not give me the information.
Guys,
So mean.
This is literally his torturer. This is literally
so insane.
Sinwar's actual personal interrogator. And we'll continue.
I thought we
Killed.
were close.
I thought we were friends when I was peeling off his fingernails. He said
He was very
he
cruel.
loved me.
Yes.
He said "fuck you" to my face when I shocked his balls. I've never met such a mean guy.
I said, look, man, I'm the good cop here. You don't want to see the bad cop.
The bad cop is just me, but with a goatee. Here we go.
At least 12 people, at the Gaza Strip. Yahya Sinwar was a murder man. He
murder
has
man.
a murder.
He was a murder man.
Murder man.
He's the worst supervillain, murder man.
Can these people name and can any Israeli name someone that he killed or something that he did actually? I mean, I'm not saying he didn't do anything.
I think some of them can name certain terrorist incidents, suicide
Yes.
bombings that they attribute to him. October 7th, they
Right.
accuse him
Right.
of having planned. Although I've heard it said that, in fact, it's quite likely he didn't even know about it, that the Al-Qassam brigades were
Oh, interesting.
plotting things in a way that kept things very, very hush-hush.
Well, I think we're not going to know a lot about the details of October 7th for quite a while.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, the one thing this in particular interrogator is mad about is that he is accused of killing Palestinians who were spying for
Right.
Israel, and he's like, "But those were my guys." you cruelly cut down people who were trying to get you cruelly cut down.
He's the Rancor keeper in Return of the Jedi. We bemoaning the murder of his beast. Now I'm looking at this Chiron, former Israeli interrogator, describes Cruel Sinwar, and I've got, who's the band? The Go-Go's, Bananarama? Who's saying Cruel Summer?
Banana Rama. Banana Rama.
Cruel Sinwar.
Yes.
The eyes. He wants to
Oh, by the way,
kill
I'm sorry, but
He has a murder eyes.
he has a murder eyes.
He has a murder eyes. That's why everyone's got a
He's-
crush on him.
He's got murder eyes. I feel the death between you and I. All right, here we go.
Want to kill Jews.
He took reprisal against our spies. He's got Yahya Sinwar
There you go.
eyes.
Oh my God, you're so good at that.
There it is. Oh,
It's an 80s fest here.
yeah.
That's
Hey,
my era. So cool.
Sinwar eyes, they're watching you.
By machete, that was his dream. He told me that the best is to kill them by machete. When I
Sounds
was
like a
interrogated,
dance.
Yeah. I'm
Machete.
pretty sure me and my wife took machete classes the last time we were in San Francisco.
with Yahya Sinwar, I asked him, you are now 28, 29, and how come he's not married? How come he doesn't want a family? So he told me, the Hamas is my wife, the Hamas is my child, the Hamas for me is everything. I think I knew him better than his mother. After 180 hours that I interrogated with Yahya Sinwar, Believe me, I know him, I smell him, I eat him, everything.
Ew. Sorry.
Oh my God.
I
that
smell
wild?
him. I eat him.
That's the craziest shit.
He was just like, I know him better than his own mother. Believe me, I interrogated him for 100.
I suckled him
So
at my breast.
horrifying.
It's such a perfectly,
Yes.
it's a perfect twisted added layer to the
Yes.
psychopathy, the psychosexual, the Freudian. That's the most Freudian-esque
Yeah.
country in the world. It's so on the nose. Bunch of European Jews moved to the Middle East.
It just went
And become like,
super
I am-
Floyd mode.
Yeah. It's
I was-
I am your mother.
I am your mother. Why aren't you married yet? To ask that of a 28-year-old Yahya Sinwar, who is, by the way, he was arrested and put in prison at
I know. I was
25.
going to say, wasn't he in jail at the time?
Yes,
like,
right. He's like, why
when
aren't
was
you
he supposed to
married?
Figure that out.
You're literally torturing him. It's like, oh, sorry, I haven't been on the fucking dating apps, bro. There's no Hinge here in this fucking torture prison.
And again, they just like Shail Ben Ephraim, the liberal Zionist, can't contemplate a 10-year-old drawings of his father killing the soldiers of the occupying, ethnic cleansing Nazi army that has ravaged their homeland and immiserated their people. The cruelty of a child imagining dead Israeli soldiers.
Yeah.
These are the most moral. This guy can't imagine someone dedicated to something more
Yes.
than the kind of creature comforts and, status oriented, just like, having a bigger cause
Yeah.
that would have him say, you know what, the cause is my life.
And to be shocked at his purported cruelty as you are torturing.
I know. That's the part I'm like trying to wrap my brain around. I'm like, but you're torturing him. What is happening?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
It's you have to live in this completely inverted reality at all times if you are a Zionist. If you are pro-Israel, you have to be able to, no matter what, see Israel as the good guy. Even if you yourself are doing the torturing, you're just like, damn, it's kind of wild that you want to, kill us with machetes.
Well, that's like,
macheta.
so that's this, what the one thing about the last year that I will say is, having been Palestinian for my entire life, and also just a little more public because of my dad as a kid, having
Sure.
been targeted and all that. I'm like, I've been gaslit for 50 years and I thought I was going crazy. And the past year, I have people like confirming to me that I'm not crazy. I think a lot of us feel that way, which is why we love you and all that. But I can't take anymore. This is insanity. It's like every single thing is a projection. It's not even. And what I was saying before about people saying, "Oh, I went to Israel," and I'm like, "That's nice. I can't go there." Like, where's your like? Ugh! So the one thing that's been a little bit better is that like there are more people who understand this nightmare, but it's exhausting.
And not to put you on the spot, but you've posted about
No,
this on
it's okay.
Instagram, and we've talked about it, one-on-one, just as friends. But there must be a complicated set of feelings around the fact that, on the one hand, Palestinian voices are getting more airtime and more room to express themselves this year, and Israeli insanity, like this guy, everyone is seeing it now. At the same time, like, what's it like that? I mean, Matt and I, by virtue of being Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of. What's it been like for you seeing Jewish anti-Zionists?
Well, it's interesting.
Occupy this sort of special place for people of credibility or whatever. Like, what does it
Right.
look like from where you're sitting in terms of like the fact that we get to do this and people appreciate it extra because we're Jewish?
Right.
Right. Well, I think it's, first of all, anti-Zionist Jews are part of this. So it's not like, we're all in this together. And it's one of the most, my dad always said that solidarity was the greatest expression of love. And I never understood that until this year, really, because you feel it's not just, and I lost like my best friend and a couple other really good friends, and they're not even Jewish or Zionist. They just didn't know how to deal with the situation and how intense it was, and weren't very supportive. So anti-Zionist Jews have been a wonderful community that has like more people than ever. I mean, I grew up I've known Ilan Pape most of my life, and Avi Shlaim and all these people that do, and Noam and all of them. I've known them forever. So anti-Zionist Jews were a part of my life, and from the beginning. And actually, when I first started using social media with like Facebook and stuff, like 10 or 15 years ago, I would only post from Haaretz or something by Ilan, or because I knew no one would listen to anything else. Yes. And then this past year, I was like, why do I have to do that? Why can't anyone just listen to us? Yes. And I think it's difficult because I'm not trying to say we don't want anti-Zionist Jews speaking for us, because as I said, anti-Zionist Jews are part of this, and how are we going to get anywhere if we don't work together? But it's hard because you see that the people who get the most amount of time to talk are generally, if they're Arabs, they are like an expert, like Noura, it's their field of study, or they have to have all these credentials to even be interviewed. And they're great and wonderful. But I think for a lot of us who've been living it, and I've been doing work on it, I did a solo show 14 years ago, and I wrote a book. And so in 2014, when Gaza was being bombed, I was interviewed a lot. And now I felt, and it's not that I want to be interviewed, I don't really care about that, but I've noticed that people, it's like the rest of the world is opening up to the issue and being open to understanding Palestinians, but they still only feel safe doing that by platforming anti-Zionist Jews. And it gets a little tiring because it's not just my dad. There are so many Palestinians who have written articulately about this. And I would say that my dad gave a lot of people the language. And so it gets tiring when it's only because so-and-so said this that it's now what we should believe. It's a bit strange, but
100%.
I don't know. But it's like, it's hard to say that because I don't want to say,
no,
you know what I mean? Like, we don't want you, because that's not true at all.
This has been, with regards to this podcast in particular, has always been something with me that I've felt, I don't want to say like guilty about, but it's like something that I've seen the amount of like hand-holding that Americans need specifically.
It's more criticism of that than like who's actually speaking. It's just this idea that we have to have someone, I wanted to just be an actress, which is not really possible when you're Edward Said's daughter. Yeah. So I did my own play to just sort of say who I am and what I'm about. And I've done a lot of work around this. And it's art. It's not even movies. So it doesn't get seen a lot because it's mostly theater and writing. So there's so many of us who have been doing so much for so long. It gets exhausting. And then you have someone like Piers Morgan who just wants to have fights with people, and people have them screaming at each other. So it gets exhausting, but at the same time, anti-Zionist Jews also give us that sense of solidarity, and that we are not in this alone. And it matters a lot, because I think after October 7th, there was like a lot of my Jewish friends that I've had for over 30 years were like, bye-bye. And I got, Daniel knows, I got fired I teach Pilates on the side, and I got fired by a client in an email with an Israeli flag the day after October 7th. And so we go through so much, and we don't even get to sort of share it a lot of the time. But
Well, two things occur to me about that. Number one, like I said earlier, it's the fact of existing while Palestinian, being a human while Palestinian, having a life story and an ancestral story while Palestinian. That never mind your expertise or your credentials or what books you've written, like that's both the crime under the regime of Zionist hegemony, and it's the contribution in and of itself. So, something like this, like we've gone on this podcast sometimes uncomfortably long stretches without having a Palestinian guest, and now we have several in a row. It's just sometimes a happenstance,
of course,
of scheduling and things like that. But I'm just always reminded that, like, as fun as it is to sit around with fellow Jews who agree with me and like laugh about our birthright or summer camp experiences or whatever, at a certain point, we're splashing around in shallow water, and there's this platform has to be a place where people get to hear,
Right.
like Ta-Nehisi Coates says, the voices that
Exactly.
don't get
Love him.
heard all the time. And if we have something special to bring, I'm getting to the point where if I never hear another Jew get up on a microphone and talk about Tikkun Olam again, it'll be too soon. Like that, that contribution to remind the world that actually Judaism is a religion of peace and like
Healing,
social justice, and like that's too toothless at this point for me. Like, yeah, I get it. It's also a religion of genocidal incitement. If you read our text, it's a religion of many things. We don't get to be like, no, we're actually. So I feel like
I know God
what I
gets
like
nicer
about,
in the second half of the Bible. I don't know why you guys didn't keep reading. He's
We
I
did.
mean, he's kind of bad. He kills his son and all that, but he's nicer about it. So
Yeah.
he's like so scary.
Yeah, well, we
Are
don't
you
even
trying to
we don't
convert
even
us to
consider
Christianity?
Yeah, right now. Come on.
that. For us, that's not canon. That's not even the second part of the Bible. That's just some like fanfic that
Yeah.
got
That's right.
written after the fact. But if we're going to be having these platforms and being anti-Zionist Jews, then we better use it to go all the way and say the shit, show the ugly shit about the Jewish psyche on Zionism, like we do on this show, like that fucking torture. Like there are things there are jokes Matt and I can make that need to be made
that I can't make ever.
That's harder for other people to make, both through because you don't know it as intimately and because of how it might sound to others. And so hopefully we can be
at the same time
paying our dues that way.
Yeah, but also just this podcast in general. Like we grew up doing this at home, except we call it Hasbara because my mother says it with a Lebanese accent. So Hasbara, which also sounds like the word for coriander in Arabic. So I get confused sometimes. But we would sit and like my dad would be interviewed and he was once on with like Ehud Barak or someone. And he kept saying, "It is not honorable." And my dad would, in the middle of the thing, was like, "What is honorable? That's not a word," like on television and stuff. And so we grew up doing this. So it's so fun to do it with you, like to watch you guys do it too. But at the same time, I don't know if I could have a podcast like making fun of Hasbara.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, number one, in solidarity for trying not to, be another Jewish voice who's speaking over the voices of Palestinians. My baby has decided to give me fucking laryngitis.
Exactly.
So
there you go.
I want to say shout out to Comrade Baby.
Also, we do Jew on Jew interruptions and speaking over on this podcast.
We also speak. Yeah, that's true. As much as we also speak over our Palestinian guests and all guests.
You just do speaking over. That's okay. It's called something.
Cooperative overlap.
That's it.
But
I call
either
it
way,
frontal lobe disorder that I have, but it's okay.
Yes, we have that as well. Or as the rabbi likes to say,
You're emotionally damaged, Jewishly.
Either way, we will get an email telling us that we spoke over you too much. That's going to happen no matter what. But I just wanted to continue just talking about this idea of Jews like speaking. It's always for me been a fascinating and an annoying thing. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a Palestinian when you have to constantly, even in solidarity with Jews, you're deferring to them.
Yeah.
To be like, this is okay, right? The idea that people are like in any way giving me, like you said, an Arab or Palestinian has to have degrees to talk about this and get invited onto news programs. I don't know shit about shit. I'm not even fucking fully Jewish. And it's immediately just like, I feel comfortable with this. Anyways, this is
But
just
it's
me
not worse than my friends. Like I had a friend in high school. He's one of the people that stopped speaking to me on October 7th, who's like from the Upper East Side and of like German background. And his parents weren't particularly either religiously or culturally Jewish. and more like they wanted to assimilate into being white people. And then all of a sudden he gets taken with Israel and he spends a lot of time there and works for Friends of the IDF. And then all of a sudden, when October 7th happens, I can't possibly understand his pain.
Right.
And it's all
Right.
about him. And I'm like, you're not even from there. I am. It's the most mind-boggling thing.
Completely insane. And I'll just say this as well, which is that if you are going to be an anti-Zionist Jew taking up any space in this conversation, this is why you better just be a fucking anti-Zionist Jew. None of this like beating around the bush shit. None of this word policing, thought policing bullshit. None of this like constantly being on guard for anti-Semitism on the left.
That's
even
the
if
problem.
even if there are people who will make in good faith rhetorical mistakes, you know, or will go too far down a rabbit hole, and all of a sudden they're like questioning, you know, did Leo Frank do it? You know, because they're like, you know, the ADL is now just a front for you know, the Zionist like propaganda lobby, right? At this point, all they do is launder propaganda for Israel. I can understand someone being like, maybe from the very beginning, they are a completely, you know, fake, right? So anyways, the point is like, if you're going to do this without thinking you are the moral leader or thinking that you can police anyone else.
Yeah, it's been weird.
and
I've just had like young people explain to me, you know, this is about colonialism. It's not about, and I'm always like, this is the only time in my life that I want to say, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
But I'm getting my dad's arguments.
You should be like, let me orient you to who
exactly.
I am.
I'm getting Palestine explained by younger Palestinians, like a lot of students and stuff. And it's colonialism. You don't understand. Like, you can't say, and I'm like, please stop. And that's been weird because I think people do know who he is and all of that. But, you know, with the social media and the TikTok and all the ideas keep going, but there's no citing where they came from. And of course, he didn't invent all of these ideas, but he did articulate them very well for a lot of people. So it gets a little weird. But as long as it's all for the same basic cause, it's all good. We just have to stop getting a little. But there is that, like, you know, the idea that if we all listen to someone like Elon, who is wonderful and I love him very much, but then it's okay and not
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that you guys used to do this around the dinner table because
every night.
You know, that's something, because I need to remember that like we're catching up to you.
That's
You know,
interesting.
like we can take our place in it, we can bring our talents, and whatever gifts our weird little identity gives us, and the fact that we were on the inside to some extent, you know, but like you've, you know, it's the survival job of any oppressed people to study the oppressor and to understand them better than they understand themselves. So,
and it's funny
really
because in all these
good to remember.
years, the like strategy doesn't change. It's like they come back with the same talking points. They avoid questions the same way. I mean, even in the play, the character the young rabbi's daughter who becomes more of a Zionist, in the dialogue, she kept like avoiding the question and going around the question. And it's so exhausting because it's always the same thing. And growing up, my brother, my dad, and my 3 male cousins who are more like brothers, they actually have a podcast called Muck to C Street, which is wonderful. We would all just make fun of the news constantly, and we can all do a great Israeli accent, and we know the ins and outs of the argument. It gets more and more absurd the more you listen. Yeah.
Which is why this podcast is fun to do.
It's so funny. It's fun to watch too.
And it's also funny because the way you pronounce the title of the podcast kind of tells us what demographic you're in. If you say Bad Hasbara,
right?
You're either Palestinian or you're sort of on the outside of this. If you say Bad Hasbara, you're probably a North American Jew like us.
That's true.
If you say Bad Hasbara, there is no such thing as Bad Hasbara.
Yeah, that's when you know you're going to get the 1-star review on Spotify.
Exactly.
So this conversation actually, I think, smoothly transitions into just sort of wrapping up this Sinwar piece, which was I wanted to talk about the way in which the media, even in the most like Hasbariest corners of the BBC, they, in trying to smear him, they couldn't not eulogize him with some indisputable facts about him, which is, number one, he was born a refugee. He spent 22 years in prison. He learned Hebrew, studied Israeli society. And when he got out, he became the head of Hamas and literally changed the charter to recognize Israel, which is something that has just been completely erased from the narrative.
And to specify that the struggle is not with the Jewish people per se, but with the Zionist entity.
And
Yes.
even with that, I always am like, the whole thing about having it said Jews is, it's like they made a country and said it's only for Jews.
I know.
And then
That's right.
we're
Yes.
like, okay, well, we're not Jews, so we're going to fight we're the country of the Jews. And then we get called,
Yes.
it's like all a trick. And then
I'm imagining a comic strip where it's like, Mama, the Jews are coming
Exactly.
to us. The Jews are coming. And the mother's like, don't be anti-Semitic.
exactly. And then they would say like, and then the flag has the Star
It's
of
the
David on
Jews.
it. You like just took the religious thing and put it on the flag. So if I criticize the country, I'm anti. This is all a trick, and Arabs get really annoyed
Yes.
by it.
Of course
Yes.
it's a trick. It's literally the Jews down the road. It's those Jews.
Yep.
Yes.
It's not all the Jews in the world,
It's
but
the
it's the
state
self-proclaimed
that says, I
it's
am
the state
the
of
Jews.
the Jews.
And like we were saying earlier, it says a lot about political instincts in general.
Yeah.
That they are like, we understand the parameters in which we are working with in
Yeah.
terms of convincing the world that, yes, indeed, the imprisoned population of 2.3 million Arabs in Gaza is the victim. And as ridiculous as it sounds to even just say that out loud, that
Yeah.
you need to convince people of that. I mean, that is something, it's the same instinct that people have where they go like, I'm going to need to listen to a Jew talk about how Israel is bad rather than a Palestinian.
Exactly.
It's playing towards people's instinct to be careful about what they say with regards to the Jews. And I think that one thing that I've seen a lot of people do since Sinwar was killed by Israel has been to be like on the lookout for anyone who's going to do like Sinwar eulogizing posting.
Yeah.
Someone who's
Yeah.
gonna say something positive. And a lot of like these
Like this one here, like the Alon Mizrahi post.
Yes. And also, so what you'll end up seeing is a lot of people who are like, I don't know, more media figures, I would say, the ones who are like safe to put on the BBC or safe to put on MSNBC or whatnot, doing the thing where they're both sidesing it. They go, he was terrible. He's evil. He's bad, obviously. But now are you going to condemn?
He was mean to his interrogator. He was
Yes.
notoriously
He was
Yeah,
so
cruel
mean to
in
the guy
in
that
the
kept him
torture room.
imprisoned and tortured him.
His own mother,
Yes. Exactly.
his own old Ashkenazi male mother.
Yes. And so like, I've even I got some DMs from people who I don't fucking know who saw some like tweets that I had retweeted about Sinwar's death that were in some way too kind for them. They didn't like that it was too kind. And so, people have been like, so wait, what do you think about Sinwar? And I was thinking about this question, and I was like, I just realized my thoughts on Sinwar are this. If his last name were Saperstein and he was born a refugee into a open air prison of 2.3 million Jews who were kept in an apartheid state by whomever, and he was the leader of a violent resistance against the oppressor, And he ended up dying not in a hidey hole, but on the front lines, throwing a grenade one-handed, throwing 2 grenades one-handed at his oppressors, and throwing a stick at their, advanced technology. If that were the case, there'd be a fucking statue of him in Washington, D.C.
It's incredible.
If that were the case, we would all agree that that guy was a righteous martyr. That's the truth of it. And you can say, oh, well, there would be, some people who are like, I'm against his tactics, but at the end of the day,
it's pure heroism. It really, that's heroism, whether you're on that side or not. If it were like
Nat Turner,
an epic, like, whatever, novel or poetry, it would be like, this is the greatest thing you could ever write about somebody.
And I think Nat Turner, who oversaw massacres of far more specific horror and documented barbarity and brutality than Sinwar ever did. Yeah, they had to invent a bunch of shit to make October 7th come close to what the Nat Turner slave revolts were. He is now rightly seen as maybe a complicated heroic figure. Right. Matt, I just texted you a screenshot of a tweet that my brother put up, which I thought was, alongside what you just said, a sober and sort of the only decent way of reacting to this. Whether Sinwar advanced or hurt the cause of Palestinian liberation is for Palestinians to decide. Westerners are responsible for our own actions. You hear the Chomsky in him, right, Najla?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
In this case, the decades-long Israeli military occupation of Palestinians, which Hamas was founded to resist and which has now turned into outright mass murder. And I've had friends contact me and be like, can you believe all these leftists, celebrating Sinwar? Do you know how controversial he is among Palestinians? Do you know how hated Hamas is? And I'm just like, I don't care. Yeah. Like I don't get to have a vote or an opinion on which prison gang rises up. I know. At Sing Sing or Attica or Auschwitz.
Just to kind of go back to what we were saying earlier about the anti-Zionist Jews, like I think that your brother does this really well, and you guys do as well, which is you don't say what Palestinians should do or what they're and that is the key to it, is being having solidarity, but not that condescending. And I think you guys do this pretty consistently, and so does Aaron. Just say it's not up to me. It's not up to me. Yes. It's up to them. And I even say that because I am a Palestinian. And that's another thing that has sort of been lost since Oslo, when they kind of divided us up so well. When I was growing up, all Palestinians, whether in diaspora or in 48 or the West Bank or Gaza, were Palestinian. We were all one cause, one thing. And now it's really diaspora Palestinians are different. And so I even defer to Palestinians that live there. Like, it's not up to me. I don't personally think a 2-state solution will work, but if that's what they decided, it's not up to me to say. Right. I can certainly criticize it, but if somehow that's what works, it's not up to me to say that. And that, I think, is a key thing to what we were talking about before.
And you could make a very compelling Palestinian case for, wow, Hamas really fucking blew it on October 7th.
Of course.
They really fucked their people. You really could. And that would be an interesting and worthwhile conversation worth having in a certain context with certain people and whatever. But what I'm not going to do is presume, like, I was at a Jewish Currents event, which was full of great people. Nura Erekat was on a panel there with a bunch of Palestinians. There was a panel of several Jewish scholars and thinkers, and all of them are opposed to the Israeli occupation, apartheid, opposed to the genocide. But one of them saw fit, and I was surprised at this person. I won't name names, but this is someone that I've wondered maybe we should have them on the podcast or something. But I was very surprised. This person said, I want to take this opportunity, now that I'm in front of a Jewish Currents crowd, to say something that I've really been wanting to say, which is that if we don't condemn October 7th, if we don't strenuously condemn the mass murder that happened, then we lose all moral credibility. And I actually went up to this person afterwards and I said, the problem, you may feel like sympathy for Israelis is missing in leftist discourse. You may feel that in the zeal to support the oppressed, people are becoming desensitized
Sure.
to the pain of people that you would consider innocent on October 7th. That's fine. You can say that. You can lament it. You can grieve it. You can mourn it. But the minute you use the word condemn, you put yourself in a particular position from which to condemn it.
Yes.
You are saying,
That's
I
right,
have
yeah.
a place to stand. I have a place to stand. And that place allows me to say that had I been in your position, I would have done something different. And I have the right to say what I would have done in your position. And here are the options you had, and here's what you should have done.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not willing to stand on that and like actually elucidate what you mean and tell Palestinians what they should have done, and if you're willing to arrogate to yourself the right to tell Palestinians what they should have done, then I'm sorry, you don't have the right or the mandate to stand here and condemn.
Yeah.
What there is to condemn is the
Well, it's
thing,
also like
is the
when
actions of those with power.
It's like when they bring up the talking point of like, well, you guys didn't accept partition. And I'm like, how does that help people dying right now?
Yeah.
But also like the condescension about people who lived a long time ago choosing to give up most of their homeland. It's like, you wouldn't have done that either. I don't understand that like, and it's always so condescending.
Yes, it always comes from a place of absolute privilege.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you are just a regular ass privileged Westerner, you're already coming from a place of privilege
Exactly.
where you think your liberal values should decide the fate of any other political conflict that is probably caused by the government that bore you. But it's even worse, I think, when you are a purported Jewish anti-Zionist or Jewish non-Zionist intellectual who wants to tell people what is right and what is wrong, tell Palestinians how to resist. And to me, it just is another layer of privilege where it's like your voice is being raised up because of the fact that you are a Jew who is against this. Don't use that as a cudgel. And that's not to say that don't share your wisdom. I absolutely believe that older Jewish anti-Zionists who have been around the block, like Finkelstein, for example, has a thing or two of value to say about his experience, and that should he disagree with some tactical decision, I think you should go ahead and say it. He's also
been the personal guest of Hamas leaders in Gaza.
Yes.
He's actually broken bread with these people. I'm
so
willing to listen to him saying, I think they maybe screwed the pooch.
Right.
Tactically.
It's exactly.
But you'll never hear him standing on moral grounds.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And condemning. Because that was his first thing right out of the gate last fall. In every interview, he would bring up the Nocturnal Slave Revolt.
Oh, he did.
The abolitionists, our fundamental obligation is to refrain from confusing our own emotions and our own personal reactions with a moral platform to condemn anything. If we're in solidarity with these people, then their right to resist is sacrosanct, even if the choices made along the way and how they do that might be horrific, idiotic, stupid, in our opinion. We might have views about it.
Of course.
But,
my first memory of Norman Finkelstein makes me feel guilty. I took a phone message from him when I was like 8.
Yeah.
And I wrote his name and number on a Post-it, and then I forgot to give it to my dad, and I found it in my book bag at school. And I still feel bad about that because Norman is so sensitive.
Did he ever get in touch with your dad?
Yes, he did eventually. Okay. I just remember pulling out the Post-it at school and being like, oops. And then being like, I remember writing his name.
I have had it with the crocodile voicemails, the answering machines. I don't respect that. I don't respect when you say you'll take a message and give it to your father.
I was like 8. I'm sorry.
This is torture. I can't do his voice because I've lost my fucking laryngitis.
My late mother.
I can't do it.
A bad Hasbara fan who's a leather worker. I didn't bring it with me. I should have. In Texas, sent me a beautiful Palestine key ring made with colored leather, but also made me this leather pouch. I don't know what it's used for, but wrote on it, "My innards are writhing."
Oh,
which
beautiful.
is a Finkelstein
famous
quote, and
famous
he
Norman.
knew the way to my heart.
I think we've said what needs to be said. And I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm feeling like that was a Bad Hasbara podcast.
That
What
was
about
pretty
you, Dan?
good.
I think we've Said what needs to be Said. I'm just going to keep writing this.
There's so
We're
many.
so sorry.
There's so many clever Said said jokes.
I know.
They never end.
Are you kidding me? I'm G'day Mate. I'm.
Oh right.
You know,
I mean,
You're the
I'm
best
a lead.
mate. You're the best mate. You're the yerba mate.
Yeah.
You're the oh my god.
Yeah.
There's so many ways.
first, yeah.
With me, it's just
Look at all these 4-letter last names.
Oh yeah.
Well, my mom gets to be Mama Said, knock you out.
Oh, I love that.
She's the
Najla
luckiest.
Said knock you out.
Yeah.
Oh man. I
That's
wish I
fucking
had.
awesome.
Sometimes people call me Liebtard.
I love that. I call you Lebensraum.
But does
Yeah,
it leave
there we-
mean like love or something?
Yeah, but I think they
Oh.
want to call me Libtard, but
Yeah,
so
I
then
know.
instead they call me Lieb. There, what else?
Shitlib.
Yeah, Shetlieb. You could. Some people used to call me Lieb the Heeb, but it was okay because they were Jewish too. So I was like, I'll accept.
In high
it.
school, they used to call me Menage la Trois, and it was really not fun.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
not
sorry. Well, you're no longer in high school. You're here safe at the
Thankfully.
Bad Hasbara podcast. Najla, you've been a joy to talk to. Thank you.
Thank you. So
much
have
for
you.
coming on.
You guys
Oh.
are awesome, and I do love your show.
I can't believe you actually listen. That makes
Of course
me
I do.
so happy.
I don't really leave my house or the YouTube.
Yeah,
I just look
fair.
for like people who don't hate Palestinians on the YouTube, and then I watch them.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Well,
No, it really makes me. I mean, I grew up feeling really isolated and really self-hating, and it's been a very different thing being a grown-up and having people stand with you. It's very different, so it means a lot.
Well, thank you. It means a lot to me to have you on and to for you to express that.
Your
So
little
yeah, please
verklempt.
come back.
I would love to
Yeah,
come back
Yes, please do.
and make fun.
Patreon.com/badhasbara. Please donate or subscribe. And badhasbara@gmail.com. Please write us letters. If you have to write a letter to us saying we interrupted Najla too much, I will just ask Najla right now, were we interrupting you too much?
No, I'm surprised I didn't interrupt you more.
Oh,
I have a
well.
problem with that.
Well, so do we. So
Stop infantilizing our women guests, all right?
okay.
They have strong voices.
Yeah. I always
What did
fuck up.
Adam say?
Oh, I didn't read it. Yeah. I'll stop
I'll
writing.
stop
them.
writing.
You start,
Oh my God, it turned
you
plot
start
twist.
reading them.
All the YouTube comments,
Oh man.
all the nasty letters are from producer Adam.
And thank you all out there for listening to this show, watching this show on YouTube or listening on Spotify. Sorry about my voice. Hopefully by the next episode, it'll be all better. All right. That's the end of the podcast. Until next time, from the river to the sea.
That fucking butcher, I raised him on my knee.
Jumping jacks was us. Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us. Taking